welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, and I am your host. Today is Wednesday, February the 21st, 2024, and I hope you liked our new intro that we have for our show. Please don't forget to share our information. Let me know what you think of the new intro. Let's go ahead and get started. So we have an affirmation for today, and this affirmation says, I am allowed to be myself and show people who I am. I am allowed to be myself and show people who I am. And you know what? That is what I intend to do. Is from now on, it's you're gonna get me like I haven't been me all this other time. But what I'm saying is that frees me up with the idea that I don't have to tone it down. I don't have to shy away. I don't have to dim my light. I can just be me. And I encourage you to be you. So let's go ahead and get started into our news for today. We're going to have a little bit of a different format. So going forward, I told you there's going to be some new changes to this show. We're going to really highlight the news, cut back on some of the affirmations, but also bring you some good information and some promotion. So we'll be talking about that, but let's get into the stories. So our first story here. Okay. It says addressing nurse burnout, a critical examination of current trends and solutions. Coming out of Phoenix, Arizona. So this was published in Better Nurse, and it says nurse burnout, a pervasive issue exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, has reached alarming levels across the United States. This has profound implications for nurses, their patients, and the healthcare system at large. And so we've been talking about this since 2020. About the increased rise of burnout. So this is 4 years into this. Wow, it's 2024. Yeah, so 4 years of this show and 4 years of doing this and talking about this. So it says in a study, betternurse.org has delved into nurse burnout statistics, uncovering the states and times when nurses feel the most strain. So they did an analysis of Google Trends data, supplemental research, and expert insights so they can shed light on the magnitude of the issue. So I just wanted to share some of the insights from this study. So the study reveals several high-level takeaways concerning nurse burnout in the U.S. One is that Arizona is the state where nurses are currently experiencing the highest levels of burnout. I find that interesting. And there's another article that we're going to talk about the Arizona and the nursing shortage, but we'll get into that. It says Los Angeles, California is the metro area where nurses are currently experiencing the high levels of burnout. Not surprising, it is a large metro area, diverse population, a lot of stuff goes on. In 2023, nurses experienced the highest level of burnout during the week of November the 26th to December 2nd. And I'm wondering if that's because of all the holiday things, that you have the stress at home for your holidays, right? But then you have to go to work and work over the holidays and deal with everybody else's stress too. Nurses reached the highest level of burnout in the last 5 years during the week of April 17th to April 23rd, 2022. Not exactly sure, other than maybe there was a lot going on with COVID at that time. I'm not sure, but it'd be interesting to know why that would be. And it says over the last 5 years, the month with the highest level of nurse burnout is November. And I'm wondering again, if it's for those of us that are in the Midwest and other places, it's the change of the season. It's the fact that we're going into the holiday season and all the stressors from the holidays. I'm not exactly sure. And it says on average, the last 5 years, the week with the highest level of nurse burnout is the fourth week of the year or late January. So those are just some of the insights that they had. And so I wanted to reach out to you and let you know, here are the top states, the top 10 states with the most nurse burnout. You ready for this? Number one is Arizona. Arizona is number one with the top state with nurse burnout. Number two, New Jersey. Number three, Minnesota. Number four is Ohio. And I have some thoughts about that because we've covered a lot of stories about what's been happening in Ohio. Number five is California. 6 is Texas. 7 is Florida. 8 is Michigan. 9, New York. And 10 is Illinois. For once, Indiana, I'm very proud to say, we aren't on the worst list. I don't know where we fall in the rankings, but at least we weren't in the top 10. Kudos to us in India for at least that. So just some more information. There's a full study for that. You can reach out to them at betternurse.org to get the full study. But yeah, those are some interesting information that came out of that, and I thought, that was good to see. Hey, what's happening out there? All right. So this article popped up on my news feed, and I thought, yeah, I wanted to really talk about this because it was interesting. This is from the Miami Herald, and it says a 78-year-old employee of the year is fired over her age, stay in hospital, according to a lawsuit. Let's get into it. So, a 78-year-old receptionist at a Georgia retirement community was suddenly fired the month after she was named one of the employees of the year, according to a new federal discrimination lawsuit. The longtime employee of Covenant Woods in Columbus was recognized as a 2021 Employee of the Year in January 2022 before she was fired over her age and a 2-day hospital stay in February 22. After the woman was hospitalized in February following high blood pressure at work, she noticed a new employee who was about 30 years younger sitting at her desk when she returned to the office, according to the complaint. In a meeting that day, a general manager questioned the woman about how long she planned to work for the company. According to the complaint, the manager says, "Where do you see yourself? Do you need to keep working? Do you want to travel? See your brother?" Are questions the manager is accused of asking her, according to the complaint. Although the woman says she wanted to work for 2 or 3 more years, the company fired her 2 days later as a business decision based on a loss of confidence in her abilities. Her hospitalization was cited as a safety concern that led to the difficult change at Covenant Woods, which is run by Covenant Woods Senior Living and Brightspace Senior Living. And so I don't know all the details of this case. I have not looked into this legal case, but my first thought was this is a woman that just based on her age, they might look at her and say, well, you need to be a resident and not working here. I mean, I can see that happening because I've seen younger people question the ability of older people a lot. And we've certainly seen that in the political arena, have we not? Right? So that was my first initial impression reading this story, but let's go on because I just want to get into some of this. So it says, now the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is suing Covenant Woods and Brightspace Senior Living, accusing the companies of age and disability discrimination, the agency announced in a February 14th news release. We at Brightspace and Covenant Woods disagree that we have in any way engaged in unlawful discrimination, says the Chief Financial Officer, Brian Hendricks of Brightspace Senior Living, in a statement. It says, we remain committed to our residents and associates. Okay. According to the EEOC, the woman worked at Covenant Woods for more than 14 years and was replaced with, quote, a significantly younger employees following her termination. The retirement community went against its own policies by immediately firing her, as she never received a verbal warning, written warnings, or was suspended beforehand, the complaint says. This is a woman who's not had any trouble and was the employee of the year. I'm telling you, these companies aren't loyal. So according to Marcus Keegan, who is the regional attorney for the EEOC's Atlanta District Office, the ADEA prohibits employers from firing someone who is at least 40 years old because of their age. Additionally, the ADA prohibits employers from terminating an employee because of an actual or perceived disability. Covenant Woods violated both statutes when it terminated a high-performing and long-tenured employee on the unfounded assumption that her age and medical condition would prevent her from doing her job. And so, again, I just brought that out because I wanted to show that, yes, there is some ageism in the world. It's just a real phenomenon. I've talked to a gentleman the other day, and he had lost his job. He was laid off from his job, and he's in his 60s. He's having a hard time finding another job. Ageism is real. You know what the great thing is? Being an entrepreneur, you can hire yourself. So just a thought, I'm putting that plug in there for some of you nurses that are thinking about transitioning and you're worried about this very thing. Going into business for yourself, although can be scary, can also be thrilling, because are you going to fire yourself? Okay, so let's get into this other story. And by the way, happy Black History Month, because I haven't had a chance to say that yet. And shame on me for not saying that, but I should have. And so I wanted to say that. But this story came up, and it just reminded me of that. It just came across my news feed, and I made sure that I emailed the story to myself because I wanted to talk about it. This is from the LA Times, the Los Angeles Times, and it says, an essential medical device is failing people of color. So it says Roots Community Health Center was slammed in 2020 with lines for its COVID-19 testing station stretching around the block and exam rooms full of people struggling to breathe. Patient after patient at East Oakland Clinic extended their fingers so the healthcare workers could clip on a pulse oximeter, a device that measures the degree to which red blood cells are saturated with oxygen. For healthy people, a normal pulse ox reading is typically between 95% and 100%. So a lot of runners use it. People that are going up in the mountains and hiking, they use it a lot. And then, of course, people who have breathing problems are often using pulse oximeters to monitor. So you can get those over the counter. You can find them. But here's the caveat here. So it says the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, had instructed providers to give oxygen therapy to any COVID patient with a pulse oximeter reading below 90%. Like their counterparts around the country, Roots doctors advised concerned patients to buy inexpensive pulse oximeters so they could monitor their levels at home. As the pandemic ground on, it became clear that Black and brown patients were dying of COVID at disproportionately high rates, both across the U.S. and in Roots' own Alameda County. In the rare hour when she was in the clinic, Roots founder and chief executive director, Noah Abulata, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Dr. Abulata, paged through medical records in search of answers that might help her patients, the vast majority of whom were Black or brown. One paper in the New England Journal of Medicine stopped her cold. University of Michigan researchers examined records of thousands of hospitalized COVID patients and looked for instances of occult hypoxia, a situation when a patient's pulse oximeter reads in the healthy range, but their actual blood oxygen levels are dangerously low. The researchers found that this happened to Black patients nearly 3 times as often as it did to white patients. Abulata recalled that the devastating feeling of diving further into the literature and realizing that this disparity was not a new discovery. And I personally, this is the first time I've heard of it. So it was new for me. And that's why I brought this out because, as you're out there in the public health, nurses and others that are watching, if you're out there in the public health, this is important because I often stick that pulse ox on people and, oh, you look good. I don't know why you're short of breath. Well, let's get into it. So it says, research dating back to 1990 found that the inaccurate pulse oximeter readings were more common in Black patients than non-Black ones. In 2005, detailed lab experiments showed that pulse oximeters frequently overestimated blood oxygen levels in patients with more skin pigmentation. It says the device is really used almost like a vital sign, like you would a blood pressure cuff. Abulata recalled how horrified you would feel if you suddenly found out that your blood pressure cuff didn't work on a certain demographic of your patients. So this is an issue because, again, like I said, I've often put on that pulse ox and say, oh yeah, it looks great. Don't know why you're short of breath, right? So she says she alerted colleagues to the findings and investigated the effects the devices had on the fates of COVID patients of color. She asked the Food and Drug Administration to require pulse oximeter makers to test their devices on people of color and to warn consumers about the heightened risk of false readings. Attorneys for Roots sent letters to companies that made or sold pulse oximeters in California, asking them to improve their products and disclose their limitations. When little changed, Roots filed a lawsuit in November against CVS, Walgreens, GE Healthcare, and 9 other companies that make, sell, or distribute pulse oximeters in California. And so that's exactly what I did. I here in Indiana went on over to the local CVS, Walgreens, wherever, Walmart, picked up pulse oximeter, and have been using that for my patients. It says, so the pigmentation derived inaccuracies of pulse oximeter readings in people with darker skin consistently skew or are based in one dangerous direction, showing that their blood is more oxygenated than it is in reality. Individuals with darker skin who use the devices are no less entitled to accurate readings than individuals with lighter skin. So the suit also asks the companies either find a fix or place a warning label on the products to alert users that skin pigment may affect results. So before pulse oximeters were widely adopted in the 1980s, the only way to gauge a patient's blood oxygen saturation was to draw a sample of blood from the arterial vein, a painful procedure that had to be followed by immediate laboratory analysis. The portable, non-invasive oximeters was a true innovation, right? Obviously. So a pulse ox works by shining a light that passes through the skin, blood, and tissues in the finger, and then measuring how much light comes out the other side. So this would make sense. Oxygen-rich blood absorbs more infrared light. So does melanin, the pigment that helps determine skin, hair, and eye color. As a result, patients with darker skin tones are more likely to get pulse oximeter readings that show their blood oxygen saturation to be higher than it actually is. Cold, and it's not the only variable. Cold hands, we all know this, nurses. Trembling fingers, incorrect probe placement, even nail polish can throw a reading off by a few percentage points. Knowing this, doctors traditionally use pulse ox as one data point among many when determining the patient's course of treatment. So I just wanted to bring that out. I thought that was, to me, a very important public health issue that we need to address, and that's something that I will definitely be sharing with my colleagues as well. Going back into talking about safety concerns that we have in healthcare, this next story is coming from NCPR News, and it's Elizabethtown nursing home patient arrested for allegedly strangling nurse. New York State Police arrested a nursing home patient after she allegedly assaulted her nurse in Elizabethtown on Thursday. According to the police reports, 80-year-old Mary Long had asked her nurse at the Essex Center nursing home for cough syrup and nebulizer treatment. When the nurse told her it wasn't time for her treatment yet, Long got irritated and allegedly wrapped the nebulizer cord around her neck. The nurse broke free, but then police say Long shoved her into a linen closet and began pulling her hair. The nurse was not injured. Police charged Long with criminal obstruction of breathing. She was released and is set to appear in Elizabethtown court later this month. First of all, I saw this and I was like, another incident where a nursing home worker has gotten hurt. But then I also saw they actually followed through and filed a police report. And I'm saying kudos to them for doing this, because it's one thing if the person is completely obtunded, they're out of their mind, they're completely confused. That's one thing, right? But there are people that know what they're doing, and they have impulse control issues. Sometimes it don't stop when you turn 65. And if you have those issues when you're 55, guess what? You may still have them when you're 65. And so we'll let due course happen and go to trial and do what she's supposed to do. But I'm encouraged by the fact that even a police report was made, because I can tell you, a lot of times it's like, oh, it's part of the job. So in a way, for me, that's a little encouraging. It says this is really have got to stop. So that's why I brought this up. I just thought that was like, yay, right? Okay, so here we go. This is another story. This is coming out of New York. I believe New York. No, Boston. Sorry, CBS Boston. It says Governor Healy tells Stewart to get out of the hospital business in Massachusetts. This is from WBZ News. I found this kind of interesting because we kind of talked about this story earlier a couple weeks ago. So Governor Maura Healey has sent a letter to Steward Health Care, essentially telling Steward to get out of the Massachusetts hospital business. In the letter to Steward's CEO, Healey demanded documents laying out Steward's finances by the end of business on February the 23rd. She also wants CEO Ralph Della Torre to make sure the hospitals are properly staffed and open to monitoring. Healey wrote, "You and your team have not been forthcoming, truthful, or responsive about what's happening with your financial status, operating plans, and contingency strategies." Court documents reviewed by WBZ show that Steward is in deep financial trouble and has not been paying vendors. And we kind of talked about this a week or so ago, right? So Healey said if Steward cannot maintain staffing and supply levels necessary to patient safety, the state would take action that could include freezing admissions, closing beds, and transferring patients to other hospitals. Healey goes on and wrote, "For years, you have refused to engage in the same level of basic transparency that every other system in Massachusetts offers by not releasing your audited financial statements. This information is essential to understand Steward's current financial status here and at Steward's hospitals across the country, how Steward has and is prioritizing its resources and protecting assets, and whether, as it seems, you and Steward chose to maximize profits and personnel and corporate gains at the expense of patients, workers, and the state and federal healthcare system." The letter went on to say that Steward should begin an orderly transition of its 7 licensed facilities to new operators as soon as possible. As the state's attorney general, Healey represented the Center for Health Information Analysis in a court case over Steward's refusal to submit financial information to the state. So this is something that apparently this governor has been aware of for a while, right? So she's been working on this for a while. In 2023, the Suffolk Superior Court ruled that Steward had to release its financial statements. The case is still under appeal. Steward's hospitals include St. Elizabeth's Medical Center in Brighton, Good Samaritan Medical Center in Brockton, Holy Family Hospital in Haverhill, Holy Family Hospital in Methuen, Kearney Hospital in Dorchester, St. Anne's Hospital in Fall River, Neshoba Valley Medical Center in Ayr, Norwood Hospital in New England, Sinai Hospital in Stoughton, and Morton Hospital in Taunton. I hope I pronounced all those correctly. So we will see what happens. We'll follow this story. So more happening on the front with Steward. We'll see what's happening with them. This is a story that came from Skilled Nursing News. And it says, inside the push for more nursing home participation in ACOs, that's Affordable Care Organizations, or Accountable Care Organizations. And I actually remember when I was working in the nursing home when ACOs first came out, and there was a big push to get the nursing homes to participate. So I'm curious to see what this story has, because this is something that I actually was a part of in some small way as a nurse practitioner in this initiative. So it says the nursing home sector's minimal participation in accountable care organizations, largely because they have not found it lucrative to be in ACOs or have been sidelined within ACOs by other provider types, has resulted in a push for change. In a joint effort aimed at enhancing the integration of long-term care and post-acute care providers into ACOs, the American Healthcare Association and National Center for Assisted Living and the National Association of ACOs have released a set of recommendations which, if implemented, could result in cost savings and quality improvements for nursing homes. Let's see what it says. So it says currently fewer than 2,000 skilled nursing facilities participate in ACOs, where moreover nearly 70% of ACOs have no SNF participation. So when this was first rolled out, the whole idea of it was to get your patients from the hospital into the rehab, into the SNF, and get them out as quickly as possible. So they're like 10, 14 days in for rehab and out. Well, if you know, Medicare allows for nursing homes to keep them up to 100 days. So there was no real incentive for the nursing home to say, leave, right? Because they wanted to be able to recoup that dollar. Also, not everybody meets that push to get out criteria. So that was the big issue. And I actually had one of my executive directors for the place that I work sit me down in the meeting when this was first coming out and say, well, you tell the nursing home that you're going to discharge your patients whether they want to or not. And I'm like, I can't do that. I said, that has to be between you as the executive director and you talking to their executive director and going to the food chain. That is above my pay grade. So I remember these conversations that were happening. So this is what this is. So I just want to kind of give you a little backdrop with some of this. So we're going to get into it. So she says, Aisha Pittman, who is the senior vice president of government affairs for what's called NACO, NAACOS, says that this inevitably involves working with SNFs and other post-acute care providers. However, Medicare rules governing ACOs today make it difficult for all providers across the continuum to meaningfully participate, which is true. One, provide more flexibility for SNFs so they can more easily participate in ACOs. Two, make it easier for ACOs to work with SNFs or receive information on their patients who receive care in SNFs. She added that providers need better access to data and information to ensure their patients don't end up back in the hospital. So those are some of the recommendations that they have. This is a great article, and there's more into it. So go ahead and head on over to Skilled Nursing News if you want to learn more. All right, so here's another lawsuit. This is something that came up, and I'm flummoxed on this one. It's out of Kentucky. It says, lawsuit, nurses fired after reporting fellow nurse for stealing and taking morphine. Okay. Nurses at Heritage Hall Nursing Home in Anderson County say they were fired for calling the police on a fellow nurse, according to a new lawsuit. In the early mornings of August 27, 2023, 51-year-old Abigail Hall was arrested after she was accused of stealing and using morphine that was meant for elderly patients dealing with pain. Hall is currently facing several charges, including 3 counts of knowingly abusing or neglecting an adult, as well as multiple accounts of theft of a alleged drug and theft of possession of a controlled substance. Her arrest came after other nurses at the facility noticed something was wrong and called police. Those nurses came to LEX 18 last year to tell their side of the story, saying they tried to bring up concerns about Hall well before the night she was arrested. The nurses also said that management at the nursing home told them not to call the police the night of Hall's arrest, instead telling them to tell Hall that they were over budget and send her home. But they called the police anyway. One nurse said she was inebriated, she's taking care of fragile lives, and at any point in time, she could have killed someone. This week, a lawsuit filed in Anderson County City Court alleges that those nurses were fired due to calling the police. The message to these plaintiffs was very clear. You come to work, do your job, and keep your mouth shut, says the nurse's attorney, Thomas Clay. Don't raise concerns about the impaired conditions of other employees at the facility. It's a chilling message. The lawsuit names 2 managers at the nursing home at the time and the nursing home itself. When LEX called the nursing home to ask about the managers in the lawsuit, they were told they no longer work there. Not surprising. So this again is one of those things where, and that's what made me think about the 78-year-old, is that you have managers, you have managers out there who are just saying things willy-nilly, and then this is what happens. The lawsuit also alleges that the nurses were denied shifts at Signature Healthcare facilities, not just Heritage Hall. The 3 nurses who filed the lawsuit are seeking compensation for emotional distress, embarrassment, loss of wages, and medical expenses. When asked about the allegations, Signature Healthcare said Signature Healthcare at Heritage Hall Rehab and Wellness Center has been investigated and validated by the Office of Inspector General to comply. Again, the company spokesperson said they could not respond to ongoing litigation. However, they did say, because we can say our work is hard to serve our residents, their families, and our stakeholders each and every day, as they are our top priority. We ask that WLAX 18 and its viewership withhold judgment and presumption concerning any pending litigation, as allegations of the lawsuit are just that and are proven or disproven through the legal process, et cetera, et cetera. So I bring that up because you know what? Again, these companies aren't loyal. They're not loyal. All right. Which brings us to our next story. Um, Coming out of Minnesota. This just came today. It says workers announced strike at 7 nursing homes at Twin City metro area. Nursing home worker Teresa Breeze speaks at a news conference on February the 20th, 2024, announcing workers at 7 nursing homes authorized a 24-hour unfair labor practices strike for March 5th. Over 600 unionized workers at 7 nursing homes in the Twin Cities metro area could walk off the job for 24 hours on March 5th unless they reach a contract that includes a $25 an hour minimum wage. At a news conference outside St. Teresa Senior Living of New Hope, nursing home workers said they voted for the unfair labor practices strike because low pay and grueling shifts have forced many out of the field and pushed those who remained to a breaking point. She says, Teresa Breeze says, last year I worked 23 straight days, and unsurprisingly, I ended up tearing my biceps. I know so many nursing home workers who face stress and injury because of overwork and understaffing. The workers who unionized at SEIU Healthcare Minnesota and Iowa and UFCW 663 said they are also seeking more affordable health insurance, a pension, and higher staffing levels. So the workers who are authorized to strike are at these nursing homes: St. Teresa of New Hope, Estates of Roseville, Estates of Freedley, Estates of Excelsior, Villas at Robbinsdale, Cedars at St. Louis Park, and Serenity Senior Care Humboldt in St. Paul. Okay. We're going to go with this story and then we're going to go to our break. So, multiple local nursing home facilities at risk of foreclosure, according to court documents. This is coming out of Peoria. This is out of Illinois. So it says 7 local nursing homes and long-term care facilities at risk of foreclosure at the Peoria-based parent company Peterson Healthcare is on the hook for nearly $51 million in loans. As of early February, those facilities are now under the care of a court-appointed receiver. That receiver has control over all the assets and most operations of the company. In court documents filed in January, Maryland-based Capital Funding LLC and Excalibur Funding LLC made separate claims Peterson Healthcare defaulted on its loans to those companies in December of 2023. In the foreclosure suit filed by Excalibur Funding, Peterson Healthcare claimed it was the victim of a ransomware attack targeting its billing systems for multiple facilities in October 2023. That, they say, impacted its ability to make loan payments, causing them to fall into default. Excalibur said it wasn't made aware of the attack until the payments came due. Excalibur and Peterson agreed to pay $40 million in loan in 2019. The remaining balance as of January was over $31 million. The loan agreement allows the lender to foreclose on those properties to pay back what is left. And the second suit, Peterson owes more than $19 million in housing and urban development-backed loans. The totals are split among 8 facilities. Of the 17 long-term care facilities, 7 are located to local Timber Creek Rehabilitation and Healthcare in Pekin, Fond du Lac Rehabilitation Healthcare in East Peoria, Bloomington Rehab and Healthcare in Bloomington, and Sunset Rehabilitation and Healthcare in Canton are listed in the $19 million lawsuit. So there's several in here. You can certainly get more on this story from 25 News, but yeah. So this is more of the trickling effect that's happening with long-term care that we've been seeing. So nursing homes owned by a lot of times private equity places are losing money. Those that are run by the state or local government sometimes are also losing money. So it's just been a vicious cycle. So let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come right back for more news. All right, so let's get back into the news. And here's our next story. And again, we're talking about Arizona. Healthcare report says Arizona will have the nation's biggest nursing shortage in 2025. So we're talking like next year. So Phoenix, Arizona will have 28,100 fewer registered nurses than it needs next year, according to the National Center for Healthcare Workforce Analysis. If the prediction comes true, the state would have the worst nursing shortage in the nation in 2025. Heidi Sanborn, who is the president of the Arizona Nurses Association, says it's a huge problem. When you don't have the nurses where they need to be to deliver care, that's a public health crisis. The lack of nurses is most acutely felt in in emergency rooms and urgent care facilities. People who need medical care can end up in stretchers in the hallway waiting for hospital beds for hours on end. Overcrowding in emergency rooms can become so severe that nurses can't get through the door. If I have an emergency, whether I'm driving myself or in an ambulance, I can be diverted to another facility, potentially hours away if I live in a rural area. That's the scope of the problem. Nursing shortages can have deadly consequences. Hospitals with high patient to nurse ratios experience higher patient mortality rates than those with more equitable numbers, according to the National Library of Medicine. Plus, nurses who have too many patients to juggle experience burnout, Sanborn said. The overwhelming workload can lead them to quit, thus perpetuating the ongoing shortage. We're stretched very thin oftentimes at the bedside because of those workforce vacancies. Workforce conditions are really a big part of the stress that nurses are under. So, and the question asking, why does Arizona have a nursing shortage? And Sanborn says, in addition to overwhelming workloads, low pay and workforce violence can also repel nurses from the profession. We have nurses who are being threatened to walk to their car and watch their back because I'm going to get you. You didn't take care of my family member. This is a really scary place to be as a nurse. And I can say for myself, I have certainly had my share of threats as well. I know what kind of car you drive. I know where you live. I can get to you. Yes, I've had that, which is one of the reasons why I work in a different city from where I live. But we often have that. And so it can be scary. She goes on to say, this has been brewing for a long time. One of them is the age of our population, the movement of our population when we look at snowbirds coming into the state. Arizona has a lot of opportunities for nurses, and they're not all in the hospital system where we need them sometimes the most. And so, yeah, nurses have choices. Who would have thunk it, right? And so I'm not making fun of Arizona, not at all. But what I'm saying is that I think we've let this problem go on for so long, and now we're saying, oh, maybe we should do something about that. And I'm glad that it's being talked about. I'm glad that the media is shining light on this, but I'm ready for solutions. I'm ready for solutions. All right, here's another article that I found interesting. I just picked this up today. This is from WISN ABC from Milwaukee. And it says at least 30 registered sex offenders live in Wisconsin nursing homes, records show. Wisconsin law does not require nursing home management to notify staff or residents as a sex offender resides in the facility, leaving it up to individual families to proactively seek the information. And I say this because we've had more problems with and more light being shown on assaults and things like that are happening in long-term care facilities. And so I think this is important. And this is a question that has come up. You know, do you know if the person that's in the bed next to you, did they beat someone up previously, right? And so those are things that I understand, don't get me wrong, they need care too. I'm not saying that they should not get the care. I'm not saying that they should not be there. My question is, are we doing what we can to keep everyone safe, including that person that has an issue? Are we doing the best to care for them? Do I want to stigmatize people? Well, obviously, if you can't be near schools, you know, if you have problems with that, I don't know. So these are questions. I don't know what the answer is, but I think we need to have a bigger discussion about it, which is why I bring this up here. So it says when a family decides to admit their loved one to a nursing home, there is an implied level of trust the facility and its staff will keep that individual safe. At the Maplewood of Sauk Prairie, Galen Malish violated that trust not as a member of the nursing home staff, but as a fellow resident. Police records show in 2018 that Malish admitted to taking advantage of two fellow residents living at the facility. The records show Malish admitted to touching the residents inappropriately. One of the victims was a 95-year-old woman. So the police department investigator asked him, "What I'm trying to understand is why did you pick her? Are you attracted to her, or is it because of her age that you felt maybe you could get away with it?" Malish admitted it's probably in the sense of her advanced age. And so the detective pressed, "Do you have urges that you feel are uncontrollable as a man?" "Yeah, I do. I can admit that, yeah." According to a police incident report, the detectives, as they continued their investigation, had already become aware of something in Malish's background that some of the Maplewood staff had learned weeks before the assault. Galen Malish was a registered sex offender. While various members of the Maplewood staff had learned of Malish's criminal history, his fellow residents and their families likely were not aware. Wisconsin law does not require nursing home leadership to notify staff, residents, or their families a registered sex offender lives on the property. The facility is going to address those issues on a case-by-case basis, said Wisconsin Healthcare Association CEO Rick Abrams. If notification is appropriate, I have great confidence that they will do that. You do. I don't. But on the other hand, if given the physical condition of the resident, given where that resident may live within the facility, if notification is not appropriate in that instance, and worse yet, would unnecessarily alarm everyone else, then the facility should continue to make that discretion. It is up to individual families to find out whether a certain facility is home to a registered sex offender. The results show that they did a study. They pulled a list of licensed nursing home facilities in Wisconsin, and then put that with the National Sex Offender Public website. And the results show that 30 sex offenders are living at 25 nursing homes across the state. 3 nursing homes have multiple sex offenders on the property. 2 reside at Luther Manor in Wauwatosa. I don't know how to say that. 2 are living in Claridge House in Kenosha. 3 offenders in the Burlington Health and Rehabilitation Center home. While there is a requirement to notify staff or residents of the presence of a sex offender living in the nursing home, 12 News Investigates reached out to all 25 facilities to ask whether leadership is has a proactive policy of notification. None of the 3 facilities with multiple sex offenders responded. So a family conducted the same search for Maplewood in 2018. Malish's name would not have surfaced. According to a 2018 police report, Malish falsified his sex offender registry form, indicating that he still lived at an address he had prior to becoming a Maplewood resident, although he had already moved into the facility. Court records show that Malish pleaded guilty to third-degree sexual assault and failing to update his sex offender registry information. And according to the records, Malish died in 2023. After his 2018 arrest, a manager at Maplewood told police investigators staff would, at the very least, begin to check the Wisconsin Court System Consolidated Court Automation Programs, or CCAP, to check the criminal history of an incoming resident. They said, "We instituted a policy on the day that he was arrested. It's not as if we couldn't do it. It's just that there was no mandate to do anything." And there's the kicker. What Maplewood or any nursing home official may find in a resident's background, the facility is not obligated to share. That facility has a moral responsibility and certainly a very comprehensive regulatory and legal responsibility to do right by everyone and to try to make the best decision they can on behalf of that individual resident or sex offender or everyone else in the facility. So the only guarantee any facility is the right facility for a family would have to come from that family's own research efforts, according to this article. Abrams said it's about doing your due diligence, but also having the confidence, in your heart, you've done everything you possibly can to select the right environment for your mom or dad or whatever. And so there's a list here. And again, I don't know what the answer is, but I think that certainly being aware of that is important. We have an alert in our system for when, because of what I do, to let us know if someone is on the registry. Why? Because it could be important if you're doing a one-on-one with that person, making sure that you don't, box yourself in a room. We have skills workers that take people out, go to their home. You need to be aware of this. All right. Here's our next story. It says regulators push for 24-hour nursing home minimum wage. This is coming from McKnight's Long-Term Care News. Labor advocates are pushing Minnesota's Nursing Home Workforce Standards Board to implement a $25 minimum wage for all staff, among other measures aimed at supporting a struggling care workforce. The state regulatory board has the authority to set mandated wage levels and training requirements for facilities, but not to approve additional funding. That disparity has been a cause for concern for long-term care leaders in the state since the board was created in May of 2023. Besides the $25 minimum wage, advocates are pushing for new retirement plans for care workers, measures to increase staffing levels, and greater freedoms to join unions, according to Nancy Pohl, a labor advocate and former certified nursing assistant. From my vantage point, chronically low wages are a significant hurdle in this staffing conundrum. Adequate pay and benefits are crucial in attracting and retaining skilled healthcare professionals who genuinely care about the well-being of our residents. Poll referenced McKnight's coverage of a 2022 report that found Minnesota had the highest prevalence of facility staffing shortages in the U.S. at that time. State long-term care providers support boosting wages and benefits to attract and retain more care workers, according to Toby Pearson, president and CEO of the Care Providers of Minnesota, the state affiliate of the American Healthcare Association. However, many share concerns that the Workforce Board would place a heavy burden on the sector without accompanying state funding. Pearson acknowledged that there are 3 care providers on the board and that the state legislature has passed some one-time funding relief for nursing homes in the recent years. However, the legislature has not been consistent in passing the ongoing funding relief that would allow nursing homes to fund permanent wage and benefit increases. So we'll keep an eye on this story, but this is a call that's happening in other states too, so we'll see what happens. And lastly, this is our last story. University of Chicago nurses, our next to last story. University of Chicago nurses hold strike authorization vote, raises concerns over understaffing and patient safety issues. Nurses at U Chicago Medicine held a vote Tuesday on whether to authorize a strike as contract negotiations with management over what they say are understaffing and patient safety concerns continue. Amber Churi, who is a medical ICU nurse at U Chicago Medicine and a member of the union negotiating team at a press conference, said, "Our patients depend on us to be alert and fast acting, and we cannot do that when we are exhausted." National Nurses United represents 2,800 nurses at U Chicago Medicine. A strike authorization vote is part of a standard procedure where represented nurses give the union authority to call a strike. No actual strike has been announced. In a statement, University of Chicago Medical Center spokesperson said, "We remain optimistic that both sides will reach an agreement that allows us to continue to retain and attract the high caliber of nurses who so meaningfully contribute to our reputation and providing excellent care." So we'll keep an eye on this story as it progresses. And lastly, as you know, I like to end our news segment on a positive note. And I think this is innovative and very appreciated, I'm sure, by the students here. But it says School of Nursing opens food pantry. This is from Vicksburg Daily News. And it says, some University of Mississippi Medical Center School of Nursing students may not be only hungry for knowledge, they may also just be hungry. To help students whose resources are stretched while in school, the UMMC School of Nursing started a food pantry. Dr. Marilyn Harrington, Associate Professor of Nursing and Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, is leading the effort with help from first-year nursing student Caitlin Gibson. Harrington said, "Our hearts go out to the students who are trying to make ends meet while pursuing a nursing degree. Even a small increase in the cost of groceries can have a big impact on the budgets of students. The pantry housed in the School of Nursing near the building side entrance include a variety of canned foods, crackers, and cereals, as well as cleaning products and personal hygiene items, anything you might need at a home, Harrington said. Inside storage cabinets are neat rows of donated individual oatmeal cups and tuna salad kits, ramen noodles, and boxes of macaroni and cheese. Cans of beans and stacks of protein bars are ready when needed. Gibson and Harrington take inventory weekly to see what's been donated and what items are needed. This will help them learn what's most needed by student nurses as well as staff and faculty members facing emergencies. Students may have their courses covered in rent, but food expenses are often covered with what's left. Noticing Gibson's organizational skills, Harrington approached her about the project. She was happy to get involved. Gibson says our food pantry will be a big help, and it's a great opportunity to volunteer and help others. According to the nonprofit Feeding America, 1 in 6 Mississippians, more than 480,000 people are facing food insecurity. Helping students have the food they need is essential to keeping them on track for earning a nursing degree, Harrington said. The School of Nursing Food Pantry allows the announcement of another safety net, a student benevolence fund for students in UMMC's 6 health sciences schools who are experiencing emergencies that could affect their ability to work toward their degrees. So I just want to say congratulations, this School of Nursing and Dr. Harrington, you are our nurses making a difference this week. I want to thank you for this. I think this is innovative and a great way of keeping your students engaged in their schooling. So congratulations to them. I like to see them take the initiative and be leaders in their community. Okay, so that ends of our last segment of the news. Let's get into a few announcements really quick. Coming up tomorrow, we have our is it tomorrow? Not tomorrow. Next week. I'm sorry. Next week will be our Alignable Alliance. Next Thursday, we'll be meeting at the Thai Divine Restaurant here in Anderson at 6. So if you want to join us for dinner, meet us over there. I think it's like 6 o'clock. Meet us over there for dinner. Also coming up this weekend, we have a Legal Nurse Consulting Basics course. So if you're interested in legal nurse consulting, hop into the Nurse Shark Academy and join that. And then we have also coming up on the 28th, next Wednesday will be our CPR renewal class, recertification class. If you're interested in attending that, join us for that. And you can go over to the Baxter Professional Services HealthEducation.com for that. All right, that ends our show for today. I want to thank you for tuning in. And we're going to have our last information, and then we'll be out. Don't forget, again, to like and subscribe for everything that we're doing. Okay? Join the Nurse Shark Academy at the nursesharkacademy.biz today. Nurses, are you burnt out, frustrated, looking for something new? Are you looking for more? Nurses, are you ready to feel the sun? You will dream big and expand your consciousness as an entrepreneur. Your nursing license is your key to freedom. Join the Nurse Shark Academy at the nursesharkacademy.biz today. All right. Bye-bye for now. See you next week.